I've had enough of you and your dull existence. I'm taking it all. And just like that, this house has been sold. Make the most of what remains. The note on my kitchen counter struck me with the force of a sudden revelation. My hands shook as I took in those harsh words, hastily written in David's untidy script on the back of our electric bill. A surge of feelings enveloped me.
Surprise.
In pain. Fury. Yet, what emerged most prominently was an unmistakable sense of calm determination. I reached for my phone and crafted a straightforward reply. I noticed your message. Appreciate the heads up. Hello, everyone. I'm Nina Parker, and at the age of 36, I find myself in a situation I never thought I would face, standing in my kitchen, reading a farewell note from my husband of 12 years. As an entrepreneur, I transformed my passion for handcrafted jewelry into a thriving online business, despite David's constant dismissal of it as merely a little hobby. In hindsight, it's clear that I should have anticipated this. All the signs were present. The late nights spent at the office, the whispered phone calls, and the way he would swiftly shut his laptop as soon as I entered the room. Little did David realize, I wasn't as gullible as he believed. Half a year ago, I stumbled upon something peculiar while settling our bills. Significant amounts of money were being moved from our joint account into an unfamiliar account. When I casually brought it up to David, he dismissed it as just business investments. In that moment, it became clear to me that I had to take steps to safeguard myself. On the surface, I appeared to be the ideal, supportive wife, but beneath that facade, I was gearing up for battle. I began to record every detail. Unexplained expenses, suspicious phone calls, and those late nights he insisted were all about work. As I cruised past, I noticed the office building was shrouded in darkness. I decided to open a separate bank account and slowly transferred my personal savings into it. I reached out to Sarah, my best friend and a divorce attorney, who guided me through my rights and options with her expertise. During our recent home renovation, I took the significant step of refinancing the house solely in my name. David, engrossed in his investments, didn't even notice this crucial change. In the heart of my kitchen, as I read his feeble attempt at a power play, a subtle smile began to form on my lips. David consistently undervalued my abilities, viewing me as just a naive housewife dabbling in the world of business. He likely believed this note would shatter me, leaving me fractured and pleading for his return. Instead, I experienced a peculiar sense of freedom. The charade had come to an end at last. With a deep breath, I adjusted my blouse and opened my laptop. It was time to kickstart the action. David was ready to take things to the next level.
All right.
Little did he know I had been honing my skills for this game far longer than he could ever imagine. It all began with subtle hints of David's deceit. Last Christmas, he gifted me a silver bracelet that appeared luxurious, but it turned out to be just a cheap imitation. With years of experience in the world of fine jewelry, I can confidently say that I know what I'm talking about. When I brought it up with him, he flipped the script, labeling me as materialistic and ungrateful. That was the way of David, constantly causing me to question my own abilities, constantly bending the narrative to portray me as the one lacking reason. There was a time when our marriage looked very different. In the beginning, David was there to back my aspirations. He guided me through the process of launching my very first online store, and when I made that monumental first sale, we popped open some champagne to celebrate the achievement. However, as my business expanded, a shift occurred within him. Perhaps it was a sense of pride. Perhaps it stemmed from jealousy. However, he began to make sarcastic remarks about my small online shop during dinner parties, behaving as if I were merely pretending to be a businesswoman while he engaged in serious work at his accounting firm. Let me take you back to the moment I secured a contract with a major department store chain. Rather than joining in the celebration, David seemed completely absorbed in his phone, barely lifting his gaze. "That's nice, honey," he remarked, brushing aside what could very well be the most significant accomplishment of my career. That night, tears streamed down my face as I drifted off into a restless slumber. However, it wasn't born out of sadness. It stemmed from anger. Frustration wells up inside me for allowing him to undermine my achievements, for remaining silent while he mocked me in front of our friends. 3 months ago, the true wake-up call arrived. Picture this. I'm sitting down for a cozy coffee with my sister Janet. She's got a job at the very bank where David manages his business accounts. She paused, a flicker of uncertainty crossing her face, before revealing that she had witnessed something troubling. Significant withdrawals. Unusual transactions. Nina, she said, her grip tightening around my hand as we sat across the table. It seems like he might be up to something intriguing. It's essential to safeguard yourself. That conversation transformed everything. I began to notice the finer points I had overlooked, particularly how David consistently took charge of our finances, even with my experience in business. The enigmatic weekend business trips that he just couldn't clarify. The hushed phone conversations that fell silent the moment I stepped into the room. Every revelation felt like a fragment of a puzzle I had been reluctant to confront. I contacted Sarah, my closest friend from college, who has now become a thriving divorce attorney. During lunch, she absorbed every word and then fixed me with a piercing gaze. Nina, she said, you possess intelligence, success, and a strength that surpasses your own awareness. Cease fulfilling the part that has been designated to you. Begin your journey with chess rather than sticking to checkers. And that's precisely what I went ahead and did. As David assumed I was preoccupied with my trivial pastime, I was meticulously recording each dubious transaction, every mysterious absence, and all the deceitful words. I kept my plans under wraps, stuck to my routine, and played the role of the trusting wife, all while secretly gearing up for the storm I sensed was on the horizon. The very next day after discovering David's note, an email from our real estate agent, Marcus, landed in my inbox. My heart raced at the sight of that subject line. Attention! This is urgent. Documentation for the house sale is required. As I opened it, I found that David had, in fact, made an attempt to put our house on the market. However, a challenge arose. He was unable to move forward without my signature, as the refinancing documents had placed the house entirely in my name throughout our renovation. That day is etched in my memory. David, caught up in his own whirlwind of tasks, nonchalantly brushed off the bank meeting, leaving me to take the reins. He signed a power of attorney without a second glance, believing I would continue to handle the details as I always had, while he focused on the big decisions. His carelessness had transformed into his greatest blunder. I reached out to Marcus without delay. It seems there has been a bit of a mix-up, I stated with a sense of calm. No sale of the property has been authorized by me. After a brief, uncomfortable silence, Marcus finally revealed that David had been rather adamant about putting the house on the market right away. The discomfort in his voice was palpable as he recounted David's arrogant belief that everything was already taken care of. At that moment, my phone vibrated with a message from David. Contacted the real estate agent. Make sure to sign the papers as soon as they arrive. You have a full 24 hours to gather your belongings. The disdain in his message ignited a fire within me, yet I kept my cool. This was the moment I had been gearing up for. I picked up the phone and dialed Sarah's number. It's time, I declared as she picked up the phone. She grasped it right away. For months, we meticulously prepared for this scenario, collecting evidence and documenting every detail. She had already prepared the divorce papers, foreseeing David's inevitable decision, but unlike his intentions, ours were legally solid and foolproof. Keep in mind, Sarah advised, to refrain from replying to any further messages from him. Allow him to believe he holds the reins. We're going to unleash everything we've got all at once. Every detail is accounted for, the safeguarded house deed, the recorded fund transfers, all of it. Her confidence strengthened my determination. This had evolved beyond merely safeguarding my assets. It was a moment of empowerment, a turning point after enduring years of quiet manipulation and disregard. As I settled into my chair, my gaze fell upon the framed photo of David and me, a snapshot from those blissful days gone by. The woman in the picture, with her radiant smile, appeared almost like a stranger, an individual unaware of the incredible strength that lay within her. I carefully removed the frame and set it gently into a drawer. It was time to make a decision about our next steps, and for the very first time in our marriage, I found myself in control of the situation. The following morning, my phone lit up with a flood of increasingly furious messages from David. What's the holdup on getting the house listed? Marcus has pointed out an issue with the paperwork. It's time to get serious and sign those documents. With each message, his mounting frustration became evident as the meticulously crafted plans he had put in place started to fall apart. As I sat in my home office, meticulously finalizing some jewelry orders, the sudden sound of the doorbell interrupted my focus. There he was, David, standing on my porch, his face a vivid shade of anger. This marked the very first encounter since discovering his note, and to my surprise, I felt nothing but a steady sense of resolve. "What did you do?" he demanded, forcefully pushing past me into the foyer. "Marcus claims that I can't sell the house without your signature, but that just doesn't make sense. I took charge of all our financial matters." I stood firm, arms crossed, ready to face whatever came my way. "Did you manage my business accounts?" My voice remained calm, concealing the rapid thumping of my heart. "The ones you've been covertly moving funds from?" His face turned a shade paler for a moment before he regained his composure. "What are you referring to?" "I've taken some steps to secure our future through a few investments. It's hard for you to grasp, considering you spend your time just playing with beads all day." "I completely understand," I responded, making my way to the desk and retrieving a hefty folder. "It has come to my attention that there have been withdrawals from our joint accounts that seem to be unauthorized. I see that you attempted to sell a house that is solely in my name, and I see that you believed I was too oblivious to catch on to any of it." David's expression transformed, moving from anger to confusion, and finally settling into a state that resembled fear. "What do you mean the house is solely in your name? Recall that refinancing paperwork you didn't have time to go through? The renovation meeting that you decided to skip?" I observed the moment, understanding washed over his expression. "You have officially transferred your rights to the house. This belongs to me, David. Just like that business you once considered a mere hobby, it's now thriving and worth more than your entire annual salary." He collapsed onto the couch, his arrogance slowly fading away. "You can't do this to me," he exclaimed. However, his voice had dulled over time. "Arrangements have been made. I've got some exciting plans lined up." I interrupted. "Plans that demanded my money, my house, and my compliance. Now let's dive into what's really going to unfold. It's time for you to leave my home, and my attorney will be reaching out to you regarding the divorce process. What about the funds you transferred? We'll dive into those topics as well." David took a moment to collect himself, adjusting his tie with a determined focus as he rose to his feet. "You're bluffing," he declared. Yet, I could sense the doubt lingering in his voice. "It seems you may lack the resources and knowledge needed to challenge me on this matter." As I approached my desk, I reached for yet another folder. "Are you referring to these bank statements that reveal consistent withdrawals from our joint accounts?" I meticulously arranged document after document. "Or perhaps those emails you inadvertently left open on our shared iPad, revealing your intentions to leave? Or perhaps you like to take a look at the private investigator's findings regarding your business trips to Vegas." With each revelation, his face became increasingly pale. Did you really hire a private investigator?" "Absolutely not, David." "Indeed, Sarah did. Do you recall Sarah? That friend of yours who always talks about coffee, the one you never really took seriously? Meet the individual recognized as one of the top divorce attorneys in the state." I maintained a steady tone, even as I observed him start to fall apart. He ran his hands through his hair, pacing the room with a sense of urgency. "This isn't how this was supposed to go," he muttered, a hint of disbelief in his voice. "You were meant to." "What is happening? Let's analyze this step by step. Could you please stay with me? Will you really just accept the scraps you've chosen to give me?" I shook my head in disbelief. "That is simply not going to happen. I've taken the step to freeze our joint accounts, as I have the necessary documentation of your unauthorized withdrawals. The house will still be here, and my business, well, that was never yours to claim from the very beginning." David's phone vibrated with a sudden buzz. He gazed at it, and I watched as the color drained from his face. "Your lawyer," he said in a subdued tone. "She has already filing for divorce, indeed. She is also seeking an urgent hearing regarding the funds you transferred. We possess documentation of all events, David. Each and every transaction. Each and every email. Each deception." He sank back into the couch, a picture of defeat. He confessed, "I didn't expect you to fight back. You consistently just went along with everything." "That was your greatest error," I responded. "You were so caught up in doubting my abilities that you completely overlooked the moment I began to believe in myself." The doorbell rang once more. This time, it was Sarah, arriving just as expected. David glanced upward, a wave of panic washing over him as the full extent of his defeat became painfully clear. "You need to go now," I stated with conviction. "All subsequent communication should be directed through our legal representatives." I opened the front door to find Sarah waiting, her professional smile in place and a briefcase packed with the additional documents we had meticulously prepared. As David strolled by Sarah, he appeared to be a mere echo of the self-assured man who had penned that harsh note in my kitchen. "Nina, I implore you." He made one final attempt. "Let's dive into this topic together." "So, you mentioned the idea of selling our house?" I inquired. "Or perhaps it's about emptying our wallets." With a soft touch, Sarah rested her hand on my shoulder, a subtle reminder to maintain my composure and stay focused. David's phone began to ring. It was indeed his bank. Sarah had foreseen this moment, cautioning me all along. As soon as the divorce petition hit the court, it set off a deep dive into those questionable transfers he had executed. As he answered the call, I observed his expression shift, a wave of distress washing over him with each word he heard. "What exactly do you mean by frozen?" He hesitated as he spoke into the phone. "Actually, it seems there's a misunderstanding here. I'm looking to gain access to those accounts." He gazed at me with a sense of desperation, finally grasping the extent to which his plans had unraveled. Sarah stepped forward, her voice clear and authoritative. "Mr. Parker, it would be wise for you to reach out to your own attorney. There is significant evidence pointing to financial misconduct, and the court approaches these issues with utmost seriousness." David's legs buckled beneath him, and he collapsed onto the front steps of a place he now understood was no longer his home. Tears began to flow down his cheeks. What I observed were not tears of remorse, but rather tears born from frustration and defeat. Every plan he had meticulously crafted, every scheme he had set in motion, was disintegrating before his very eyes. He started with a surprising admission. "I never thought." "Indeed, I did interrupt. Did you ever imagine? Who would have imagined that I would finally stand up for myself? Who would have guessed I had the smarts to stand up for myself? Who would have believed I had the strength to turn my back and move on? That's the reason you chose to leave a note rather than engage in an actual conversation. Because you never truly understood me in any way." As we observed him gradually make his way to his car, Sarah tightened her grip on my hand. "Great job, Nina. Absolutely fantastic." She had transcended the role of a mere lawyer throughout this entire journey. She was my unwavering support, guiding me to discover a strength within myself that I never realized existed. As David's car rounded the corner, a sense of relief washed over me, lifting the weight that had been pressing down on my shoulders. The facade had finally crumbled. Say goodbye to the days of sneaking a peek at your bank statements. It's time to stop keeping track of his falsehoods. It's time to stop being the submissive partner. I was liberated. In the weeks that followed, I immersed myself in the journey of rebuilding my life. The jewelry business, once dismissed by David, transformed into my sanctuary. Orders were flooding in, and at last, I was liberated to grow without the nagging remarks about squandering cash on new gear or supplies. Sarah provided me with regular updates on the legal proceedings. David had brought on a fierce attorney, but ultimately, it made no difference. Every detail was captured with precision. The judge showed a keen interest in the documentation surrounding his financial misconduct. Let's talk about those business investments he had been making. What we uncovered were gambling losses in Vegas, along with efforts to conceal funds in accounts that were meant to remain hidden from me. The house, my stunning craftsman-style home that I had meticulously renovated, was still in my possession. With each passing day, I meticulously transformed the space, gradually wiping away all remnants of David, one room at a time. I transformed the living room with a bold, deep blue hue that had always been off the table for him. I turned his home office into my very own jewelry studio and finally acquired that antique workbench I had been dreaming about for years. Every transformation resonated with the essence of rediscovering my true self. My sister Janet frequently visited, lending a hand as we sifted through years of cherished memories. Recall those moments when he would tease you about your small pastime during family get-togethers? One evening, as we sifted through old photos, she remarked, "Now, take a moment to observe yourself. You're shining in the spotlight of 3 major magazines, while he's tucked away in a one-bedroom apartment." She was absolutely right. The business was flourishing, especially now that I could dedicate my full attention to it. I brought on 2 assistants to manage the influx of orders, and a prominent department store has just featured my latest collection. I couldn't help but notice the irony. Everything David had once belittled was now my lifeline, while his clever investments had brought him to the brink of bankruptcy. My friends came together for me in ways I never saw coming. Sarah, more than just my attorney, dedicated countless evenings to help me navigate through everything. "You're not merely getting by," she said to me during a night of wine. "You're thriving." She was absolutely right. I experienced a surge of strength, confidence, and authenticity like never before in years. The divorce proceedings unveiled a plethora of David's deceptions, surpassing even my own discoveries. The investigation conducted by the bank revealed that he had been engaging in gambling activities, losing substantial amounts of money over the years. He attempted to conceal these losses, banking on the proceeds from the sale of his house to recover financially. When that plan crumbled, it took everything else down with it. One fine morning, an email landed in my inbox from Marcus, the real estate agent. He expressed his sincerest apologies for his involvement in David's attempted house sale and inquired if I would be willing to assist his wife in selecting jewelry for their anniversary. A wry smile crossed my face as I recognized the irony at play. What started as a simple hobby has now transformed into a source of respect from those who once overlooked it. The toughest challenge wasn't the courtroom struggles or the solitude. It was striking to realize just how much of myself I had hidden away to uphold the facade of a blissful marriage. For years, I had dimmed my light, shrunk my dreams, and doubted my instincts. As I settled into my studio, crafting a unique piece with the warm sunlight pouring through the windows, it struck me that I was truly embracing life on my own terms. Half a year after discovering David's note, I found myself at a gala hosted by a local business owner. It was the very first occasion I found myself at a significant social gathering since the divorce, and I had nearly convinced myself to skip it altogether. However, Sarah was adamant, declaring that it was time to fully re-engage with the world. Clad in a striking black dress that David might have deemed overly extravagant, I adorned myself with pieces from my newest jewelry collection. Stepping into the grand ballroom, I glanced at my reflection in a mirror and found it hard to believe it was truly me staring back. The once hesitant woman, who would always seek her husband's approval before making any decision, has vanished. In her place stood an individual radiating confidence, fully aware of her value. As the evening unfolded, I encountered a number of couples who were once part of our circle of friends. Word of the divorce spread like wildfire, and the responses were quite revealing. The wives, in particular, appeared to change when I was around, becoming more open, more genuine. Barbara pulled me aside and shared that my story had inspired her to examine her marriage more closely. As she whispered those words, I couldn't help but feel a shift in perspective. It dawned on me that I don't have to tolerate being treated as if I'm foolish simply for opting to pursue my own business rather than remaining in the realm of corporate law. The gala marked the moment I first encountered James, a widowed artisan renowned for his exquisite custom wooden jewelry boxes. We engaged in a lengthy discussion about the art of craftsmanship and the intricacies of managing creative enterprises. He examined my work with sincere curiosity and posed insightful questions regarding my techniques. He never referred to it as cute or brushed it off as just a hobby. It wasn't romance, not at this moment, but it served as a powerful reminder that there were individuals out there who could truly see me for who I was beneath the surface. David made several attempts to reach out to me, particularly following the court's decision mandating him to reimburse the funds he had withdrawn from our shared accounts. His messages oscillated between fury and desperation, yet they no longer had any impact on me. During his last attempt to connect, he offered an apology not for the note or the attempted theft, but for failing to recognize the value of what we once shared. I chose not to respond. There are certain chapters that are best left undisturbed. My business kept expanding. I ventured into teaching jewelry-making workshops, despite David's belief that it would be a waste of time. The classes filled up in no time, and witnessing other women unlock their creativity turned into one of my greatest joys. Countless individuals recounted experiences akin to my own, tales of aspirations sidelined, of abilities overlooked, and of promise stifled beneath the weight of others' demands. The house that David attempted to sell from beneath me transformed into a genuine sanctuary. Every month, I brought together local female entrepreneurs in my beautifully restored dining room, creating a welcoming space for women to discuss their challenges and celebrate their achievements. The space that was once filled with David's scornful remarks now resonated with joy and support. Reflecting on that fateful morning when I stumbled upon David's note, it became clear to me that it was not the conclusion he had envisioned. It was the start I had been waiting for. The woman, trembling in that kitchen as she read his cruel words, could never have foreseen the incredible strength that awaited her. Each tear I shed, each night dedicated to scrutinizing bank statements and legal documents, every instance of doubt and fear, they all guided me to this very moment. My jewelry business has grown beyond my wildest dreams. Exciting news! We're now shipping internationally, and I've had the honor of being featured in several major fashion magazines. What started as a small hobby that David dismissed has now blossomed into a thriving business, employing 8 individuals and boasting a waiting list for custom creations. Yet, beyond the achievements in business, what truly fills me with pride is the woman I have evolved into. The other day, I stumbled upon that note from David, hidden away in a drawer. Seeing those furious words, "I'm done with you and your dull life," had me bursting into laughter. Life has taken a thrilling turn for me. Join me on an incredible journey as I travel to artisan fairs across the country, empowering women to craft and appreciate their own creations, all while fostering a community I never realized was so essential. Sarah frequently suggests that I should pen a book about my experiences. However, I believe I'm sharing my story in a unique manner by showcasing other women who find themselves in the same place I once was. Whenever I recount my journey during workshops, I notice a spark of recognition in someone's eyes, and it's clear they're discovering their own strength to advocate for themselves. In those late hours spent in my studio, I often reflect on the alternate paths my life could have taken. What if I hadn't heeded the warning signs of the approaching storm? What if I hadn't trusted my instincts, meticulously recorded every detail, and quietly constructed my safety net? The possibilities are both intriguing and daunting. David's note had the potential to shatter my world. Instead, it set me free. Just last week, I got a letter from David's sister, sharing that he's still facing challenges as he tries to rebuild his life. She revealed that he ultimately confessed to her the depth of his regret for underestimating me, acknowledging that his arrogance led to his downfall. A part of me wishes he's gained some insight from everything that's happened, yet I've come to realize that I'm no longer accountable for his development or joy. My life has embarked on a journey I never could have envisioned during my time with David. The house he attempted to sell out from under me has transformed into a sanctuary of creativity and empowerment. The business he overlooked has transformed into a beacon of inspiration for countless women, and I have evolved into a person I take pride in being: powerful, self-reliant, and confidently thriving. Just yesterday, during one of my workshops, a young woman posed an intriguing question: do I ever find myself regretting how things concluded with David? After the divorce was finalized, I revealed to her the simple silver ring I crafted for myself. Inscribed within are the powerful words, "Trust your strength." This journey has imparted that lesson to me. We possess a strength within us that often goes unrecognized. At times, a harsh message left on a kitchen counter can lead us to a profound realization.